This show is brought to you by PivX, private instant verified transactions. With its groundbreaking zero coin staking and masternodes, PivX is the top privacy currency. Feel free to trade some on Binance or Bittrex. And for more information, go to www.pivx.org. Hello and welcome to ITK Crypto with me, Tom White, and Cryptosi is alongside us as ever as well. But our special guest today, we're delighted to have Joseph Bryce on the show from Zenzo. Joseph, how are you? Thanks for coming on.
I'm well, thanks for having me.
Great to speak to you. What we do first of all, Joseph, is just ask whoever we're interviewing to just tell us who they are and what their working background was before getting into crypto.
So my full name is actually Joseph Bryce Hart. You'll see me on Discord as Joseph Bryce, but that's also my film name. So that's one of the things I did before crypto is I'm a filmmaker too. So I'll kind of go into a little bit of my history and cover how I got there and then how I kind of ended up in crypto as well. So prior to crypto, I guess you could say I was a little bit of a journeyman. The first entrepreneurial thing that I did was start a professional gaming team with some guys from the UK and the US. But I was quickly removed from that role because I was a 16-year-old and I was a gamer. So I brought people to the team and I was like, hey, you know what? I kind of want to just play. I want to play the games. I don't want to manage players and things like that. I kind of went on my little gaming career, and I was a pretty good player, but I was good enough to compete with some of the best people in games like Warcraft 3 and Dawn of War, but I was never winning tournaments. So I would always get knocked out by those people. About 5 years later, I got a publishing sales job, which was foreboding to me. I was a really introverted and shy kid. So, and then about 6 months into the company, my work with that company, I saw that the VP of business development was retiring. So I put my name in the hat to take his job. I was the youngest person in the company worldwide, so their no was repudiating. But I said I would work for free for a month trial period and just to give me a chance, see what I can do, and give me like one county to see what I can pull out of it. And long story short, they ended up actually putting me in the position. So I ended up being the youngest company worldwide. They had about 5 companies. The mother company is actually in Germany. The second biggest was the United States. So I worked with them for a long time, helped developing sales teams and meeting with directors for chambers of commerce and city managers from town halls. And basically my job was to build and train the sales team. And then on the other side was to get these cities and chambers of commerce to sign exclusive contracts for us to do their cartography. So we built and designed their maps, put all those statistics for population and jobs and education, things like that. And so there was valuable information in it, and then people would sell advertisements in it for the local commerce. So I did that for roughly 4 years, and I kind of got to a point where I wasn't really doing what I wanted to do in my life, even though it was a great experience and obviously invaluable for me to get lucky enough to get a position like that in a pretty large company. So I ended up actually going back to school for nursing. And at the same time that happened, I kind of lived off the money that I had made with the company and was like, I'm gonna do my passion as well. So I went for nursing, and while I was doing that, I was learning how to write screenplays. And one of those screenplays that kind of took off in this group of filmmakers in Detroit and Toronto, and I got it financed, and I made my first movie while I was in nursing school. So it was pretty chaotic, and I kind of went through this whole thing, and I was like, well, I already got a seat in the nursing program, so I'm going to finish it, and I did. And I just kept making movies while I was doing it, and my last film actually won, which was my last year in nursing school, won Stanley's Comic-Con. So that was kind of the world that I was in, just in between medicine and business, and filmmaking is very much business oriented as well. So that's kind of where I was. And then right towards the end of nursing school for me actually is when I kind of discovered crypto and started getting involved in it. So that's the long journeyman story for you. I kind of started diving into how these things could really be applicable in different industries, such as film and real estate, because I also did a little bit in real estate as well. And it's just, I saw endless opportunity in the market, and it's, now I'm here.
Well, we've had some great stories as to what people did before being involved in crypto, but I think that one might be the most interesting. I mean, professional gaming, we're going to have a whole podcast on. I wanted to ask you so many questions about the professional gaming, then onto the screenplays as well. Absolutely fascinating stuff. But our listeners, I suppose, they'll want me to press on and get into the crypto, so that's what I'll do. But there's so much more I want to ask you there. So let's take us on to Zenzo. Right, what is it, and what is it built to do?
Yeah, so Zenzo, we're building a free market ecosystem for the gamer by the gamer. So essentially, we're focused on eliminating the redundancy of recycled game titles and mechanics, as well as establishing monetization measures for players, but also not just for players, but also spectators as well. Essentially, what we're doing in this market is we have many different focuses, and one of those is we're building a hatchery. And that's essentially going to allow us to incubate independent games through a governance system. So we'll include gamers in this world of actually making decisions on what kind of games they would like to play, instead of seeing the same rehashed titles, which is really where the gaming market has gone at this point. I think anybody in gaming can tell you it's relatively poor choices as of late. And I think for people who are from the golden age of gaming, who grew up on arcade games and things like that, and actually got to experience the move from consoles to PC gaming into online gaming and then ultimately esports, I think we really missed that groundbreaking genre era where just every game that came out for PC was making some new waves and some new style of gameplay, and we just don't see that anymore. So Zenzo's really focused on how we can kind of incorporate the gamer into those decision-making processes in a way that's taking a little bit of the centralization away from the suits and saying, hey, we're the ones playing the games. We should also be the ones building the games. So that's one of the steps that we're doing. And we're also focused on building a free market economy to where people who are like I was, for example, or not even as good as I was in the competitive scheme, where I was competing with all these awesome people, but I couldn't beat them more than 1 out of 3 games. I was lucky. There's a way for you to monetize your time. So if you're playing a game like an MMORPG, for example, sure, people sold gold on eBay and for games like World of Warcraft or something, or maybe sold accounts, but there was no easy way to actually take an item that you found in this ecosystem and safely actually sell it to somebody else. You had to kind of go off this trust-based system, and it's a lot of scamming went on, and it's just a really good place for the cryptocurrency movement to come in and say, hey, not only can you have this management of your own ecosystem, but you can actually do it safely. And furthermore, you can actually do it for something that's not just internal game use. So where you see things like Steam, which is a great platform, but they keep everything kind of internal. So if you sell a product, your Steam bucks essentially just stay in that ecosystem, which is brilliant from a standpoint of they're the only ones that were doing it. So they had really easy control over keeping that money in there. But I think that I theorize as a gamer involved in the system that we'd see a lot more beauty out of people being able to kind of commingle in other games and move resources between games by being able to actually take this item and monetize it and sell it. And then I think you'd see a lot more money actually flowing into games with an ecosystem like that than you do with something that kind of keeps it closed and encapsulated. So that's a big thing that we're working on is not only creating a marketplace, which we already have, where you can buy the games and things, but you'll eventually be able to actually go on there and see these items that have this kind of lineage tied to them and identity tied to them.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That is. I mean, Cryptosi, I don't know if you've got anything to pick up on there, anything that you want to ask in more detail.
Well, no, I think it is fascinating. Zenzo's a project which I've only really known about for the last maybe month and a half, something like that. But it really has captured my imagination. I'd like to think of myself as a gamer, albeit nowhere near good enough to play professionally. But I really do enjoy games, and I fully agree that it's one of the good things about crypto is that you can kind of distribute the power to the token holders, and that is something that Zenzo are really planning on doing. I think something that is definitely important to note is that Joseph's not talking about something purely theoretical when he talks about the marketplace, because it's already well on its way. I'm not sure, Joseph, if I'm right in saying it's already at beta or is it at alpha?
Yeah, we have the actual marketplace that we're kind of built into our Discord. That's we're pretty close to actually launching it to the public as well. But we have plans to actually make it bi-directional. But right now, I would say it's kind of in that alpha 2 beta stage where we're the only ones that are actually populating it with items right now. The Zenzo team, we're populating it with games right now, kind of testing it internally, and then we're adding some security measures to make sure that when somebody does sell an item, they can't scam another user. So it essentially is allowing us to create this bi-directional platform where the way we manage CD keys and things like that, you can't just put up a bunk key and then have somebody buy it. So we're pretty close to kind of going to a little beta test for the bi-directional, and then we'll be pretty much ready to launch it already. We just want to make sure that we test those security features on that bi-directional side first.
Okay, so I tell you what, this might just bring us on to Zenzo Hatchery. Can you describe that for us?
Say that again, sorry.
Zenzo Hatchery. Can you describe that for us? Have I said that right, Cryptosi?
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, sorry, it cut out a minute on my side. So yeah, the hatchery is it's our video game incubator. So we're basically going to create a platform where developers from the indie nature, or even people who maybe develop games for big studios at some point, will be able to submit their ideas or their current developments to our team and community, so they can essentially pitch to all of the people in the Zenzo ecosystem. And the highest reviewed projects we'll then take and we'll break them down and analyze them, not only from a video game perspective, but also from a business perspective, and see if it's a product that brings something unique to not only our ecosystem and potentially our partners' ecosystems, but to the gaming community as a whole. And if we find that it's a good choice, we'll take everyone that's kind of a good option that the people loved and throw them into a box. And then through community governance, we'll allow people to interact and say, hey, this is the game that the hatchery should incubate. And when that project's selected, we'll then kind of go through an incubation process. And the ultimate goal with that is to not just give resources and have that be in our ecosystem, but to actually eventually have suites of tools and things like that that these gamers can use, and access to people from major companies that have experience in the gaming realm that can help them and kind of advise them as well. So I think you see a lot in the VC world that these companies will go in and put money in. And it's kind of, they kind of keep their distance. They don't really offer a lot of these solutions. Some of them do, but a lot of them don't. And I think that's something that's really missing from the gaming world. And that's something we plan to bring in with the hatchery.
Do you feel that video games are a real use case for crypto? What factors will accelerate adoption in that area?
This podcast has been brought to you by Rhubarb Media. Rhubarb Media are the branding specialists behind successful crypto projects such as PivX, Vendible, and Libertaria. The Rhubarb style is both loved and respected the world over. So if you want your project to appeal to techies and everyday users alike, give Rhubarb Media a try. You cannot possibly be disappointed. Link is in the description.
Yeah, so I think that that gaming is an amazing use case for cryptocurrency and blockchain technologies. To mention a few concepts, kind of like I'd spoken above about, it assists us in building free markets and monetizing time spent in games. We're essentially enabling people to interact with fluid ecosystems where they can sell items and skins that have these identities tied to them, or even simpler, integrating it into a system that allows people from all over the world to engage with game commerce. That's one of the complexities of any kind of commerce right now. I think that crypto helps altogether, not just gaming, is by enabling people to quickly move into currencies that can, easily be taken by anyone. And we obviously have limitations on that when it comes to fiat. So I believe that it's going to make waves in the esports world for both spectators and players. And I believe by removing centralization from the funding equation for video games, you're going to start to see these indie developers empowered and producing genre-breaking and genre-making new titles. And essentially, it's going to help eliminate the coeval nature of the current game market, where everything kind of comes from the same origin. So as for what factors will accelerate adoption in these areas, the entire movement, we know it's kind of a long game for us, but the more and more retail investors that pour into the crypto world, we'll start to see more and more people engaging with applications and games that are built on or interact with the blockchains. So I think to really push this forward, the user experience has to be the priority focus for developers. You need functionality, obviously, and we need cool features in the background, and it needs to be able to do cool things. But if it's not easy enough for the everyday user to kind of get into, and we saw this even in the bull run not last year, but 2017, where all these people were having these issues just getting into exchanges. Nobody could figure it out. And I remember when I got in, I was like, man, I have to wait forever just to get validated to use an exchange. And it was this whole process, and it was very obnoxious, and I could see how most people would just not bother. So the easier it is to use, the more people that are going to be with access to whatever it is that's being built. And for gaming, I think that's imperative. But I do think, too, that, if a game's good enough and people are interested enough, they'll figure out how to play it for the most part. The hardcore people will, but we need to bridge that gap to the casual people. And that's kind of like the retail investor for games.
Well, the free-to-play gaming model is becoming more popular, and I'm trying to decide whether that's a positive thing for crypto or the opposite.
I think free-to-play gaming model is something that's always been kind of a hit or miss for me. I've seen it done really well, and I've seen it done really poorly. But I think the models that do it well, where it's not necessarily a pay-to-win kind of model, and that's just kind of like my gaming morals or ethics, I guess. But so it doesn't really matter, I guess, in the state of crypto. But for crypto, I think it's wildly beneficial. In fact, I think the entire gaming industry is beneficial. There's so many unique things that can be done with gaming that will help drive adoption to crypto, as opposed to looking at, crypto to gaming. But imagine what kind of influx of crypto users a genre-defining game could bring, especially the free-to-play ones. So, which pretty much all MOBAs that I know of are free-to-play. And they have over 100 million registered users. A game like Dota 2 alone, which obviously is the creator of the MOBA kind of world, Dota 1 was, and that game alone has 10 million registered users. That's a huge market we can be bringing to crypto just from MOBAs alone. So that's just free-to-play games. So what happens when we tap gaming altogether? I mean, we're talking over 2 billion gamers who are active in the world, according to research.
Gosh, some incredible figures there. Am I right in thinking that most of your community is based in Japan? And if so, we know that gaming is huge out there. But moving it on slightly, what's the Japanese stance on crypto?
Yeah, so a lot of our community is from Japan, and we're starting to see an influx from other countries as well, now that we're kind of talking a little bit more about what we're doing with gaming, as it's obviously huge in some other countries like Europe and Korea and the Americas in general. But through our interactions with the Japanese community and from our team members who've actually spent time there, the feedback's been great on crypto and on gaming with crypto. So many companies in Japan are actually offering to pay their employees in crypto or let them receive bonuses in crypto. And some people are even building retirement funds with it. They're very strict and they have many regulations, but it's positive overall. And as I said, I do expect that as far as proponents for the blockchain and gaming side, I don't think that we'll see any difference in the community that's kind of building the gaming side. I think it's still going to be, like I said, the UK, really, Korea, and then America and Latin America specifically. Those are the big gaming realms. So I think you'll start seeing them tie more and more in, especially with the free-to-play models, as cryptocurrency starts to play a factor in how those games operate.
Well, we've got you on at a perfect time, because something that's news that has broken today as we record this podcast. I'll read a headline here to you and see what you make of it, obviously knowing. Actually, are you actually based in Japan, Joseph?
No, I'm not. I'm actually
Right.
I'm in Detroit.
Oh, okay, but you know the market, so this will be quite interesting to get your take on this. The headline is Japanese banking giant Mizuho to launch its yen-pegged stablecoin in March. What do you make of that?
I think, a lot of people really, it kind of makes me think of the JP Morgan incident with their stablecoin, and everyone's like, like the Ripple killers, which I think is hilarious when they talk about it. But I think a lot of people are kind of taking a negative connotation from it. And I kind of think the opposite, honestly. I think that the banks, by enabling their stable coins, I mean, yes, they kind of go against the theory of what we're trying to accomplish in the cryptosphere, but they're also showing that there's validity to this technology and to cryptocurrencies as well, which, as we know, in the recent years, the banks didn't even want to admit that. They didn't admit that they would ever even use a currency. They were just, if we got lucky, they would admit that blockchain technology could be something useful. And now they're showing, hey, well, cryptocurrency is valuable too. And I think that they're doing that to try and compete with the cryptocurrency movement, because they know they have to. And I think in a way it's them kind of conceding to the market. And it's not really going to have any negative effect or eliminate any of the currency movements, because there's still going to be just that centralized nation behind their coin. And there's still some colossal issues with that when it comes to commerce in general, especially if you're talking about banks who are potentially, or financial groups who are potentially competing with each other, having the centralized system that they're trying to require others to use. I think there's some issues in the mechanics behind that without having these third-party systems to make sure that transactions are fairly moving through. So that's kind of my take on it. I know it's a little bit of a loose take, because it's, we don't really know the full spectrum of what they're doing with these stable coins yet. So I'll have a better opinion, I think, when we see how they actually begin to utilize them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and the news only broke a few hours ago. We're going to ask you now, Joseph, a question we ask everybody who we interview on ITK Crypto. We ask people the same question, and we get some great answers to this, actually. And the question is, if you had to go all in on a project, which would it be and why? There is a couple of caveats. It's only projects that have been released, and you can't say Zenzo.
Yes. Okay, so the dreaded question. I kind of have a two-part take on this. I would say, if it wasn't me and somebody who's asking me, I would say, well, maybe look at companies who have already established revenue models, and I think that we're going to see Binance really take off as the crypto movement grows. I think you're going to see it kind of turn into the Amazon, where they have suites of products that aren't related to, exchanges at all. Just like Amazon went from, hey, we're selling books, to now we sell everything in the world, and we also fund movies, and we also do cloud services, or whatever it is that they're doing. I think we're going to see Binance kind of take that same approach. So I would say that's a solid investment. But my personal favorite right now, that I'm really interested in and watching, is Ontology. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but with Zenzo, we're also, we're building kind of identity systems in a non-corporate world right now, and we plan to adopt it to social platforms and things like that as well. But Ontology is building like this kind of ID system for assets and for identity verification, but it's focused on both the corporate world of people doing business with one another, but also for people to be able to more easily buy properties and things like that. And they'll be able to utilize this ID system and this kind of credit system that they're building into the blockchain. And I think what they're doing is absolutely amazing. I think they have a killer team, and it's just a great project. So,
yeah, I mean, Cryptosi, do you know much about that project?
I do not know anything about the actual ontology project. I've definitely seen it around, but the concept behind it is not. It's not actually unique to them. So I work for, as we know, I name drop it as much as I can. I work for PivX, and we use a privacy protocol called ZeroCoin, which uses zero knowledge proofs, and that's, I wouldn't say the only way, but it's probably one of the best ways to have an ID system. So yeah, I'm quite up to date with ID systems within crypto, and I definitely think it's one of the real main use cases for crypto. So yeah, I'd be interested to actually look into that one.
yeah, I would be interested to hear your take on it. It's a cool project. I think it's more focused on kind of working cross-chain with other trust platforms in the future too, but we'll have to wait and see, I guess.
Well, Joseph, I think I just about rounded it off. Could you maybe tell us where else people can go to find out more about you and specifically about Zenzo as well?
Yeah, so I'll leave some links with you guys to our Discord. That's obviously the preferred method for people to really learn about us. But we're also going to be having a AMA Saturday. Let me verify. I believe that's going to be at 2 p.m. and that's going to be in the PivX Discord, actually. So we can maybe leave a link for the Discord side, and then if people want to learn more, they can also go to zenzo.io.
Fantastic. Cryptosi, have you got any more questions while we've got Joseph?
I have actually. I've got one question which just sprung to mind as he was talking about the hatchery. Interestingly enough, I feel like his background in movies with screenplays and things like that, I think that feeds in quite well into game development. I think that the two things are quite similar. And I was just wondering, with regards to their hatchery, how will the governance work behind it? Will it be a situation where people can kind of pitch the games that they want to build and then get funding for it and probably support from Zenzo, obviously addition to the marketplace and things like that? Is that kind of how it would work? And if not, how would the governance work behind the hatchery?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. It's kind of like the governance systems you have now where people would essentially put forward these proposals. It would then be kind of reviewed by the whole community and voted on, the yes or no proposals. And then we'll kind of take it a step further because obviously we're still operating from this business side of the perspective where we need to make sure that the decisions made are games that are going to produce value to the ecosystem so that we're bringing value back to the investors. So there'll basically be like a little approval system where it first goes through the community. Then we look at it internally from our gaming professionals, and then we kick back the most tangible ideas that were selected by the community. So they still have to be community selected first, and then we'll kick them back and let them pick out of, say, the top 5 proposals we got that quarter or whatever, or however frequently we're able to incubate games in the future. And then we'll kick them back and let people kind of decide. But to kind of further encapsulate the idea of that, the goal will be to ultimately take projects that are interested in keeping the community involved as well. So 2 of the kind of criteria that will help people get selected by not only the community, but also by the Zenzo team are, does this bring value to the utility of the token, to the ecosystem, the people who are invested in it, the gamers in the ecosystem, the market? How does it interact with our marketplaces? Are they going to tie different things in? What are those things? And then also, are they going to allow governance in a certain way in the actual game itself? And what I mean by that is, will they allow people to put forward proposals on their game to say, hey, this mechanic sucks, change it. Or like, this is overpowered, change it. Let's change the meta and let's fix these issues that we're seeing. And that's something that I think will really help bring longevity to the game. Of course, you have to leave a little bit of creative power to, it's just like being in a film. You got to leave creative power to that group of artists, who's developing the game. But there's a lot of room where I think these artists could get very, very helpful insight from the community and let them put forward proposals, but also put proposals in front of them to say, hey, we're looking at adding X, Y, or Z character. Who do you want? Or we're looking at adding this mechanic, yes or no. And I think that's a way that really is going to enable developers and production companies to really save a whole lot of money and stop wasting resources and time on stuff people don't want to see anyway, and that won't have a positive effect on the game anyway.
Joseph, absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you again for coming on. Joseph Bryce there from Zenzo. Really, really exciting project. I've loved speaking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. And any questions that you have that you are interested in on the other spectrum, feel free to reach out to me whenever.
Great stuff. Thanks, Joseph. Thank you, Cryptosi.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.
Goodbye.
This podcast was brought to you by Meros Cryptocurrency. Meros is a cryptocurrency payment system that does what cryptocurrency originally intended to do. Be a practical and secure form of direct payment. Meros utilizes the best of current technology in a powerful new way. It introduces a groundbreaking consensus mechanism called merit caching. This enables Meros to be both feeless and instant while maintaining the same level of integrity of traditional networks like Bitcoin. To find out how you can participate in the future of crypto payments, go to meroscrypto.io now.